The crystalline spires of Nova Haven pierced the violet sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 moons. Within the highest tower of the imperial palace, Princess Thora Valesia stood before the ancient star map, her fingers tracing the holographic constellations that had guided her people for millennia. "Your stance is wrong," a quiet voice said from the shadows. "You're favoring your left side again." Thora didn't turn around. "I thought I'd managed to hide it this time, Commander Stelios." Raven Stelios emerged from the darkness, his obsidian armor absorbing the starlight. As the head of the Imperial Guard's elite Shadow Division, he moved like liquid night, each step precise and measured. "The enemy won't be as forgiving as I am, Your Highness." "Then teach me better," Thora challenged, finally turning to face him. Her silver hair caught the starlight, creating a halo effect that belied her warrior's heart. These secret combat lessons had been going on for 3 years now, against her father's wishes and the ancient traditions that demanded Valerian princesses remain purely diplomatic figures. Raven's expression remained neutral, but Thora caught the slight quirk of his lip. "As you wish." He drew his plasma sword, the blade humming to life with a soft purple glow. "Show me the 7th form." Thora's own blade ignited with a crystalline chime. They began the deadly dance they'd perfected over the years, their movements echoing across the observatory chamber. Each strike was precisely calculated, each parry a lesson in itself. Raven had been more than just her combat instructor, he'd become her confidant, the one person who saw her as more than just the heir to the Valerian throne. "The council meeting today," Thora said between strikes, "they're worried about the silence from the outer colonies." Her blade met his in a shower of sparks. 3 months without communication. "The quantum relays could be malfunctioning," Raven countered, though his tone suggested he didn't believe it. He spun, his blade whistling through the air. "Or there could be another explanation." Thora caught his strike and held it, their faces illuminated by the crossed energy blades. "The Shadowkin. The council won't say it, but everyone fears they've returned. The ancient enemy of her people, thought vanquished generations ago, had become more than just a childhood nightmare recently." Raven disengaged, lowering his weapon. "Your father believes peace is the answer. That diplomacy can solve any crisis." "And what do you believe, Commander?" Thora asked, studying his face. Despite years of training together, Raven remained an enigma. His past before joining the Imperial Guard was a mystery, his age impossible to guess thanks to the longevity treatments all elite soldiers received. "I believe," he said carefully, "that true peace comes from strength. And wisdom to know when to use it." He deactivated his blade, returning it to his belt. "The stars are changing, Your Highness. The old patterns are shifting." Thora walked to the window, looking out over the sprawling capital. Nova Haven was the jewel of the Valerian Empire, a city of crystal and light that housed billions. Her people had achieved near utopia, but at what cost? The outer colonies bore the burden of their prosperity, mining the volatile stellar cores that powered their civilization. "Sometimes I dream of them," Thora admitted quietly. "The Shadowkin. In the dreams, they're not monsters. They're something else. Something familiar." She turned back to Raven. "Do you think I'm mad?" "No," he said, joining her at the window. "I think you're more perceptive than most. The old records speak of the Shadowkin as demons, creatures of pure darkness. But every story has another side." A distant alarm began to sound, its low tone reverberating through the crystal towers. Raven tensed, his hand moving to his weapon. More alarms joined the first, creating a cacophony of warning. "Your Highness," he said, his voice shifting to pure command, "we need to move. Now." The observatory's quantum screens flared to life, showing multiple breach points in the planetary defense grid. Dark ships, their hulls seeming to absorb light itself, emerged from fold space tiers. "It's happening," Thora whispered, her combat training taking over as she checked her weapons. They've returned. Raven's hand found her shoulder, turning her to face him. Everything I've taught you, everything you've learned, you'll need it all now. The weight of legacy isn't just in carrying it forward, Thora. It's in knowing when to forge a new path. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Thora saw something flicker in Raven's gaze, something ancient and familiar, like the echo of a forgotten dream. But before she could question it, the first explosions rocked the city, and the night erupted into chaos. The war had begun, and with it, secrets long buried in the stars would finally come to light. The evacuation alarms painted Nova Haven in crimson light as Thora and Raven raced through the crystalline corridors of the palace. Above them, the protective dome of the city flickered under the assault of Shadowkin weapons, each impact sending tremors through the ancient structure. The safe rooms, Thora said between breaths, my father is already there, Raven cut in, guiding her down a lesser-known passage. The royal guard would have moved him the moment the first alarm sounded. He pressed his palm against a seemingly solid wall, revealing a hidden lift. But we're not going to the safe rooms. Thora caught his arm. Commander Stelios, that's treason. No, he said, his eyes reflecting the emergency lights like distant stars. It's survival. The safe rooms are exactly where they'll look first. The lift doors opened with a soft chime that seemed absurdly peaceful amid the chaos. Your father believes in the old ways, in weathering the storm behind impenetrable walls. But some storms don't pass, they consume everything in their path. Before Thora could argue further, a massive explosion rocked the palace. Through the nearest window, they watched in horror as one of Nova Haven's primary defense towers collapsed, its crystalline structure shattering like a fallen star. The protective dome flickered once more, then failed completely. Dark ships descended through the breach, their surfaces seeming to drink in the light around them. But it was what emerged from these ships that turned Thora's blood to ice, figures that moved like living shadows, their forms shifting and writhing in ways that defied natural law. The stories didn't do them justice, she whispered, watching as the Shadowkin began their ground assault. How do we fight something that isn't fully real? Raven pulled her into the lift. With knowledge they don't think we have. He pressed his hand against the control panel, entering a complex sequence. Your combat training wasn't just about protecting yourself, Thora. It was preparation for this moment. The lift began to descend, moving far deeper than Thora knew the palace infrastructure went. How long have you known this was coming? Since before you were born. Raven's voice carried the weight of secrets. The Shadowkin aren't just returning, they're reclaiming. There's a truth about your people, about the Valerian Empire, that's been buried for generations. The lift finally stopped, opening into a vast chamber that hummed with ancient technology. Rows of crystalline pillars stretched into darkness, each one containing what appeared to be a suit of armor unlike anything Thora had ever seen. Unlike the standard obsidian armor of the Imperial Guard, these suits seemed to be made of living light, their surfaces rippling with patterns that reminded her of stellar nurseries. What is this place? Thora asked, approaching the nearest suit. Inside its crystalline casing, she could see intricate markings that seemed familiar, like the ones in her dreams. The true legacy of your bloodline, Raven said, moving to a central console. The Valerian Empire wasn't built on diplomacy and cultural superiority, as your history books claim. It was built on a power that your ancestors stole from the Shadowkin, the ability to harness the very essence of stars. Above them, they could feel the impacts of the invasion, but they seemed distant now, like thunder from a far-off storm. Raven's fingers danced across the console, bringing the chamber to full life. Holographic displays sprang up, showing star maps far more detailed than anything in the observatory. The Shadowkin aren't monsters, Raven continued, confirming what Thora had sensed in her dreams. They're the original guardians of stellar energy, beings of pure light who chose to walk in shadow to protect the balance of the cosmos. Your ancestors found a way to trap them, to steal their knowledge, and used it to build an empire. Thora's mind raced, connecting pieces of a puzzle she hadn't known existed. The outer colonies, the stellar mining, is killing the stars themselves, Raven finished. Each core tapped for energy disrupts the natural cycle of stellar life and death. The Shadowkin aren't invading, Thora. They're trying to prevent a catastrophe that could unravel the very fabric of spacetime. A new explosion, closer now, sent dust raining from the chamber's ceiling. Raven moved to one of the crystalline cases, placing his hand against its surface. The case dissolved, allowing access to the suit within. You have a choice to make, he said, turning to Thora. You can follow the path of your ancestors, hide behind walls while your empire crumbles, or you can help me restore the balance. The combat training, the star maps, the dreams you've been having, it was all to prepare you for this moment. Thora looked at her reflection in the suit's surface, seeing not just the princess she had been raised to be, but something more, something that resonated with the ancient power humming through the chamber. The dreams, she said slowly, they weren't warnings about the Shadowkin. They were messages from them, weren't they? And you? She turned to Raven, seeing him clearly for the first time. You're one of them. Raven's form shimmered slightly, like heat waves rising from sun-baked stone. I am what remains of those who chose to stay, to guide and prepare for this moment. The question is, Princess Thora Valesia, are you ready to learn the true meaning of legacy? Above them, Nova Haven burned, and the shadows of truth began to eclipse everything Thora had ever known. The ancient armor embraced Thora like liquid starlight, each piece flowing seamlessly into place. She felt its power resonating with something deep within her, awakening memories that weren't her own, echoes of knowledge passed down through her bloodline, dormant until this moment. The suits, she said, watching as Raven donned his own, they're not just armor, are they? They're conduits, he replied, his voice taking on an ethereal quality that seemed to echo from everywhere and nowhere at once. Tools created by my people to help humans channel stellar energy safely. Before the betrayal, before the war, we worked together as guardians of the cosmic balance. Through the armor's enhanced senses, Thora could now see the true nature of the chamber around them. What had appeared as simple markings on the walls revealed themselves as intricate mathematical formulas, describing the fundamental laws that governed stellar formation and decay. My father, she said suddenly, remembering the chaos above. Even if what you say is true, I can't just abandon him. Raven's form shifted, his armor seeming to absorb and reflect light in impossible ways. Your father made his choice long ago, when he decided to ignore the warnings. The outer colonies didn't go silent because of failed communication relays. They went silent because the stars began to die. A holographic display sprang to life, showing a map of the Empire's territory. Dozens of stars pulsed with sickly, unstable light. Each of these is a stellar core that's been pushed beyond its natural limits, Raven explained. The energy extraction process doesn't just take power from them, it disrupts the very fabric of spacetime around them. If even one goes critical, it would trigger a cascade, Thora finished, the knowledge flowing through her from the armor. A chain reaction that could tear reality apart. She stepped closer to the map, watching as the unstable stars pulsed in an increasingly erratic pattern. How long? Days, perhaps hours. The Shadowkin invasion isn't just about revenge or reclamation, it's a desperate attempt to prevent cosmic apocalypse. Raven moved to her side, his presence carrying the weight of eons. Your ancestors didn't just steal our technology, Thora. They stole our purpose, twisted it into something that could destroy everything. Another explosion rocked the chamber, closer than before. Through the armor's enhanced perception, Thora could feel the vibrations of battle above them, could sense the desperate clash between Shadowkin forces and Imperial defenders. We need to reach the stellar control nexus, Raven said, bringing up a new tactical display. It's hidden beneath the Imperial Senate building. From there, We might be able to initiate an emergency shutdown of all stellar extraction operations. Might? Thora questioned, already knowing the answer wouldn't be simple. The shutdown process will trigger a temporary power loss across the entire empire. Millions of lives will be disrupted. Some may be lost. Raven's form fluctuated with emotion. But if we don't act, everyone dies. Thora closed her eyes, feeling the armor's systems merge more deeply with her consciousness. Through it, she could sense the truth of Raven's words, could feel the growing instability in the very stars above them. But she could also feel something else, a presence in the upper levels of the palace, familiar yet changed. "My father," she whispered, her enhanced senses picking up the distinctive energy signature of the imperial regalia. "He's not in the safe rooms. He's heading for the Senate building himself." Raven's form tensed. He knows. He must have realized what the Shadowkin attack means. A new urgency entered his voice. "Thora, your father isn't just going to the Nexus to protect it. He's going to initiate the final protocol." "What final protocol?" "A last resort, embedded in the stellar extraction technology. If triggered, it would force every tapped star to release its energy at once, creating a weapon of unimaginable power. It would destroy the Shadowkin completely." "And how many stars would die in the process?" Thora asked, though she could already feel the horrifying answer through the armor's knowledge. "All of them. Every star in the sector would go nova simultaneously. Your father would rather destroy everything than admit the Empire was built on a lie." Thora's mind raced through the tactical possibilities, the armor enhancing her trained combat instincts. "The Senate building will be heavily guarded. Even with these suits, we can't fight through the entire Imperial Guard." "We don't have to." Raven moved to one of the chamber's walls, pressing his hand against a seemingly solid section. A new passage appeared, ancient mechanisms grinding to life. The original architects of Nova Haven built more than just one secret chamber. There's an entire network beneath the city, pathways only the Shadowkin know about. Because they built them, Thora realized. Everything about our civilization, it's all borrowed, Raven finished. Or stolen. But right now, that knowledge might be the only thing that saves us all. He extended his hand to her, his form rippling with stellar energy. "Are you ready to become what you were always meant to be? Not just a princess of a stolen empire, but a true guardian of the stars?" Thora took his hand, feeling the armor respond to their connection. Above them, Nova Haven continued to burn as two civilizations clashed. But here, in the depths beneath the city, something ancient was awakening, a partnership that should have never been broken. "Lead the way," she said, her voice carrying the strength of her newfound purpose. "It's time to repair what was broken." Together, they stepped into the hidden passage, leaving behind the weight of false histories and moving toward a truth that could either save or shatter everything. The ancient tunnels beneath Nova Haven thrummed with forgotten power, their crystalline walls pulsing with patterns that mirrored the dying stars above. Thora and Raven moved swiftly through the network, their enhanced armor allowing them to perceive pathways that would have been invisible to normal eyes. "These tunnels," Thora said, her voice echoing strangely in the confined space, "they're not just passages, are they? They're conducting something." "Stellar memory," Raven replied, his form shifting like liquid shadow. The original network was designed to channel and distribute stellar energy naturally, in harmony with the cosmic flow. Your ancestors converted it into the forced extraction system used today. They paused at an intersection where multiple tunnels converged. Through her armor's enhanced perception, Thora could see streams of energy flowing through the crystal walls, each current carrying echoes of the stars they were slowly killing. "How did no one notice?" she asked, watching the energy patterns with growing understanding. "How did we convince ourselves that this was sustainable?" "The same way empires always justify their actions, through carefully crafted myths and selective memory." Raven placed his hand against one of the walls, interfacing with the ancient system. Your historians wrote that the Shadowkin were demons who sought to prevent human advancement. Easier to believe that than to face the truth of what was stolen. A distant rumble shook the tunnels, and new data flowed through their armor systems. Above them, the battle for Nova Haven had reached a critical phase. The Shadowkin forces had breached the inner city, pushing toward the Senate building from multiple directions. The Imperial Guard is falling back to defensive positions around the Nexus, Thora observed, reading the tactical feeds. They're buying time for my father to reach the control center. We're not the only ones using the old passages, Raven said suddenly, his form tensing. There are other Shadowkin down here, moving with purpose. They know about the final protocol too. Thora's combat training kicked in as she processed this new information. If they reach my father first, they'll kill him. Whatever he's done, whatever lies the Empire is built on, he's still my father. The Shadowkin aren't unified in their approach, Raven admitted, leading them down a new tunnel. Some believe the only solution is to eliminate humanity's ability to access stellar energy entirely. Others, like myself, still believe in the original partnership. That's why I stayed, why I watched over your family for generations, waiting for someone who could help restore the balance. They emerged into a vast underground chamber that took Thora's breath away. Enormous crystalline pillars rose into darkness, each one containing what appeared to be a perfect replica of a star system, frozen in miniature. The archive, Raven said, his voice filled with ancient sorrow. Every star system the Empire has tapped is recorded here, including the changes we've wrought upon them. Watch. The nearest pillar activated, showing a stellar system Thora recognized from her studies. But as the simulation played forward, she saw the star at its center begin to deteriorate, its natural cycles disrupted by energy extraction. The effect spread to neighboring systems, creating a web of instability that grew with each passing moment. The final protocol wouldn't just destroy the tapped stars, Raven explained. It would create a cascade effect, spreading through the quantum connections we've created between systems. The Empire wouldn't just be destroying its own territory, it would be lighting a fuse that could burn across the entire galaxy. New alarms pulsed through their armor systems. The tactical display showed multiple Shadowkin forces converging on their position. They've detected us, Raven said, moving into a defensive stance. And they're not all going to be willing to listen. Thora activated her armor's combat systems, feeling the stellar energy flow through her in controlled bursts. Then we make them listen. You taught me to fight for a reason, Raven. Show me what these suits can really do. The chamber's entrance burst open as three Shadowkin warriors flowed in like living darkness. Their forms were more fluid than Raven's, less constrained by physical form, and they moved with predatory grace. The princess should not have been given access to the ancient tech, one of them spoke, its voice resonating directly in Thora's mind. This only proves humanity cannot be trusted with such power. She is different, Raven countered, positioning himself beside Thora. She understands the truth, and she can help us prevent catastrophe without wholesale slaughter. The time for half measures is past, another Shadowkin declared. The final protocol must be prevented, no matter the cost. Thora stepped forward, channeling stellar energy through her armor in the precise way Raven had trained her. You're right about one thing, the final protocol must be stopped. But if you think slaughtering your way to victory will solve anything, you're making the same mistake my ancestors did. The Shadowkin warriors paused, perhaps surprised by her words, or by the way she wielded their ancient technology with such control. The Empire's sins are built on the idea that power justifies any action, Thora continued, her armor glowing with contained energy. That the strong can take what they want from the weak. If you destroy us to save the stars, you're just continuing that cycle. There has to be another way. The lead Shadowkin warrior shifted its form, studying her with senses beyond normal perception. You speak well, princess, but words alone cannot undo generations of destruction. No, Thora agreed, but they can be a start. Right now, my father is about to trigger an apocalypse because he can't imagine any alternative to absolute power. Help us stop him, help us show both sides that cooperation is possible, and we can begin to make things right. The chamber fell silent as ancient enemies regarded each other, the fate of stars hanging in the balance. Finally, the lead Shadowkin spoke again. You have learned well from our brother, it said, indicating Raven. Perhaps there is wisdom in attempting a different path. Through her armor, Thora could feel the subtle shift in stellar energy as the Shadowkin warriors relaxed their battle stances. But there was no time for relief. New alerts were showing her father's position, now dangerously close to the Nexus control center. We need to move, she said, checking the tactical display. And we need to move fast. The Shadowkin warriors exchanged what might have been looks, then the leader spoke again. We will clear you a path through our forces. But know this, princess, if your father cannot be stopped by words, we will not hesitate to use force. Thora nodded grimly. Neither will I. Some prices are too high, even to save an empire. Together, the unlikely alliance moved out of the archive chamber, racing against time and destiny toward a confrontation that would determine the fate of stars themselves. The Senate building's Nexus control center hummed with deadly purpose as Thora, Raven, and their Shadowkin allies emerged from the hidden passages. Through the crystalline walls, they could see Nova Haven burning above them, the once pristine city now a battlefield where ancient grievances played out in real time. Emperor Valesius stood at the central control panel, his ceremonial armor glowing with stolen stellar energy. He didn't turn as they entered, but his voice carried across the chamber with imperial authority. I wondered when you would arrive, daughter. His fingers moved across the controls with practiced precision. Though I must admit, I didn't expect you to come with them. Father, Thora stepped forward, her own armor resonating with the pure stellar energy it was designed to channel. You have to stop this. The final protocol won't save the Empire, it will destroy everything. It will save our legacy, Valesius countered, still not turning. When the protocol activates, the released energy will eliminate the Shadowkin threat forever. Future generations will remember us as the ones who secured humanity's dominion over the stars themselves. There won't be any future generations, Raven said, his form shifting with barely contained emotion. The protocol will trigger a cascade that will burn across the galaxy. You'll destroy everything we've spent millennia trying to protect. Now the Emperor turned, and Thora saw something in his eyes she'd never witnessed before, fear, masked by desperate conviction. You, he said to Raven, should have known. All those years watching over my daughter, teaching her to fight, you were preparing her for this betrayal. He was preparing me for the truth, Thora corrected, taking another step forward. The Empire isn't what you taught me it was, Father. Everything we have, everything we've built, it's all stolen power that's slowly killing the stars themselves. Through their armor's enhanced senses, they could all feel it now, the growing instability in the stellar network, the way each tapped star strained against the unnatural bonds placed upon it. Above them, the battle for Nova Haven had reached a fever pitch, but it was only a small part of a much larger crisis. You think I don't know what we've done? Valesius's voice cracked with emotion. What my ancestors did? I've spent every night of my reign watching the stellar readings, seeing the damage spread. But we're too far along this path now. The Empire depends on this energy. Without it, billions will suffer. Billions will die if you activate the protocol, one of the Shadowkin warriors countered. We are not your enemies, Emperor. We never were. We are the guardians of forces that were never meant to be harnessed this way. Thora could see her father's hand hovering over the final sequence, could feel the Nexus's power building around them. One command, and everything would end. Father, she said softly, deactivating her armor's combat systems. You taught me that a ruler's first duty is to protect their people. Not their pride, not their power, but their people. She held out her hand. Let me show you what Raven has shown me. Let me show you another way. For a moment, the chamber hung in perfect silence. Then, slowly, Emperor Valesius turned away from the control panel. Show me, he whispered. Thora placed her hand against the nearest crystal wall, channeling energy the way Raven had taught her. The chamber filled with holographic displays showing not just the Empire's territory, but the entire stellar network that connected all living systems. The Shadowkin didn't keep this power from us out of cruelty, she explained. They protected it because they understood its true nature. Stars aren't just power sources, they're living things, connected in ways we're only beginning to understand. But we can learn. We can change. Through her connection to the network, Thora began to demonstrate what Raven had taught her, how to work with stellar energy rather than simply extracting it. The lights in the chamber shifted, becoming softer, more natural, as the power flowed in its intended patterns. It will take time, Raven added, stepping forward. The transition won't be easy. But we can help you develop new technologies, ones that work in harmony with the stellar network rather than destroying it. The partnership we once had, it can exist again. Emperor Valesius watched as the holographic display showed two possible futures, one where the stars burned out, taking civilization with them, and another where human and Shadowkin technology worked together to create sustainable energy that could last millennia. All my life, he said quietly, I was taught that power had to be taken and held. That showing mercy or admitting weakness would doom us all. He looked at his daughter with new eyes. But perhaps the greatest power lies in knowing when to let go of what we thought we knew. Above them, the battle for Nova Haven began to quiet as orders spread through both forces. The Emperor stepped away from the control panel, then did something that shocked even Thora. He knelt before the Shadowkin warriors. On behalf of my ancestors, and all they stole from you, he said formally, I ask for forgiveness, and for a chance to make things right. The lead Shadowkin warrior shifted its form, extending what might have been a hand to help the Emperor rise. Forgiveness is not given easily, it said, but the fact that you ask for it shows that change is possible. Thora felt Raven's presence beside her as they watched the historic moment unfold. You did it, he said softly. You found another way. We did it, she corrected. Everything you taught me, every lesson and secret, you were preparing me to be a bridge between worlds. Through the chamber's windows, they could see the first light of dawn breaking over Nova Haven. The city was damaged but not destroyed, much like the relationship between its people and the Shadowkin. As the sun rose, its light caught the crystalline towers in a way that made them seem to sing with possibility. There will be resistance, Emperor Valesius warned, looking out at his changed city. Many will not want to give up the power they've grown accustomed to. Then we will show them what real power looks like, Thora said, taking her place between her father and the Shadowkin. Not the power to take and destroy, but the power to create and protect. As if in response to her words, the stellar network hummed with renewed harmony. The stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging the first step toward healing an ancient wound. In that moment, standing between worlds, between past and future, Thora finally understood what legacy truly meant. It wasn't about preserving what was, but about building what could be. As the new day dawned, she knew that their real work, the work of transformation and redemption, was just beginning.